Join us on the program right now from Pajamas Media, Mr. Bob Owens, the Confederate Yankee. How you doing, Bob?
I'm very happy I'm not in London.
You know, I mean, you can chuckle, but yeah, I'm really glad I'm not in London too. I mean, it just seems like the nanny state is not equipped to deal with what we're seeing on the streets, not only in London but in Birmingham and Manchester and Liverpool, all evening long.
Yeah, I really, had no handle on it myself till a couple of hours ago when I started really paying attention. Seems we've been having a few problems here. So I have just started to catch up with what's going on in Britain, and it is a mess.
Yeah, absolutely. And they talk about hundreds of people arrested. One person was issued a caution, which means like don't do it again, and then they let him go. 45 people arrested, but I've seen footage tonight of the riot police who are turning and running in the face of these rampaging mobs. I mean, it is just absolutely horrific to see. And if you're a business owner, if you are you own your home in London, you own a car in London, you've got to be terrified. And really seeing the lack of response from the police. People in England can't defend themselves. They don't have the right to keep and bear arms over there. I can only imagine how helpless people must be feeling.
Yeah, well, once upon a time, the British used to know how to handle thugs.
Mm-hmm.
The word thug came from thuggy, which was a cult in India that robbed and murdered people. They don't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I have a feeling if you and I, Bob, entrepreneurs that we are, should start a business and we could start making WWCD bracelets. What would Churchill do? I bet they would go over big in England here.
You may be onto something.
All right. We'll talk during the commercial break. Now, you wrote a piece for Pajamas Media a couple of days ago, and it seems so quaint, Bob. You say, now that the debt ceiling debate's over and done, let's turn our attention back to Operation Fast and Furious. Well, that was before President Obama decided to practice Obamonomics on the American people.
Yeah, that didn't turn out too well, did it?
And no, it didn't. But, look, while we're watching the stock market implode, while we're watching the empty podium, twiddling our thumbs, waiting for the president to show up for his speech, we should be paying attention to Fast and Furious because the story does keep getting bigger and bigger. And, you kind of lay out, you say the story is this: no competent federal law enforcement officer would ever have concocted an operation as obviously doomed to catastrophic failure as Operation Fast and Furious. And you lay out the reasons why no law enforcement officer would ever consider Fast and Furious to be a legitimate law enforcement operation.
Well, I'm very fortunate in that my co-blogger, Confederate Yankee, is a former police officer and SWAT operative and trainer by the name of Mike McDaniel, who decided that he wanted to, he wasn't getting enough adrenaline as a SWAT officer and decided to teach high school. And But I've picked up a few things from him and some of the other folks in the law enforcement community that I've talked to, and basically it comes down to just a list of 3 or 4 things. All law enforcement officers are trained not to let guns walk. Federal law enforcement officers know darn well that this would not lead to the cartel kingpins, and even if it did, it was outside of their jurisdiction anyway. What kind of jurisdiction does the FBI, ATF, DHS, and IRS have in Mexico?
Well, none. Now, the ATF does have an attaché. They do have a few agents on the ground. In fact, I think the Washington Post had a story today talking about a number of agents from different law enforcement agencies, and including, I guess now, foreign intelligence officers, I presumably from the CIA, who are on the ground assisting Mexican law enforcement, the Mexican military, Mexican intelligence. But with Fast and Furious, there's no indication, Bob, that any Mexican law enforcement agency was aware of what was going on. And you're right. It's not like, we can have an ATF attaché in Mexico, but he can't go make any arrests of, drug cartel kingpins. So Yeah, without the cooperation or knowledge of the Mexican law enforcement, we never could make an arrest in this case. Not in Mexico.
Exactly. There is absolutely no way that this could ever have worked. This was designed to fail.
And this is, this is a really important point, because you say middle managers in government would never dare to try such a dangerous, high-risk operation without express orders from above. And I think that needs to be emphasized again and again and again. Bureaucrats aren't known for their initiative. They're not known for thinking outside of the box. And in fact, if you work in a bureaucracy, you learn fairly quickly that thinking outside of the box is the worst thing that you can do, because it draws attention to you. And if something goes really well, gosh, now they're going to expect you to perform at that high level all the time. And if it doesn't go well, then gosh, you've really, no pun intended, shot yourself in the foot. Exactly. Bureaucrats go along to get along, and this is not going along to get along.
Exactly. This is such an aggressive program that it would have to come from the highest levels. It would be career suicide for any middle management person to even propose something like this.
Yeah, and so you say, no way did Bill Newell, the former special agent in charge of the Phoenix office, who seems to be the designated scapegoat for the Obama administration, no way was he the guy who came up with the idea of Fast and Furious.
Not at all, and I don't even think he's the scapegoat. Right now, they are protecting him very closely. He knows what there is to know pretty much about this operation. He kind of gave a hint of what he could say if he wanted to. I believe it was last week when he mentioned that he leaked some information to the White House. He has a friend in the National Security Council and he just kind of trotted that out, and I read it almost as a warning: don't hang me out to dry, or I'll come back and get you.
That'd be interesting. And that revelation, as you say, it was brought out. I think the question was asked, so how many times did you talk to this guy, Kevin O'Reilly, about Fast and Furious? And Newell's response was, a couple of times. He said he didn't think that he had a conversation that was ever solely about Fast and Furious, but he did admit to discussing this. And the White House response has been, nuh-uh. I mean, Bob, and that really has been the response. Well, we don't think Mr. O'Reilly ever talked with Mr. Newell about it, despite the fact that Bill Newell says he did.
Yeah, there's starting to be a slight credibility problem in this administration on a number.
Wait, come on now, really?
Yeah, well, I'm just glad you're sitting down for that, because I know it comes as a shock.
Yes, and in fact, this is. I wonder, Bob, if this isn't one of the reasons why the Fast and Furious story is still flying under a lot of people's radar screens, because Obama's credibility is taking hits, as you say, all over the place. And the mainstream media, while there has been some good reporting on Fast and Furious from mainstream media outlets like CBS News, I still believe, by and large, most of the mainstream media is very much invested in the Obama presidency. They really wanted him to win in 2008. I think they're probably going to be his last cheerleaders in 2012. And anything that they can do to avoid piling on, I think that they'll take those steps. And I think the result is we're not getting, generally speaking, great reporting on Fast and Furious. There's a lot of stuff that's being left out.
Absolutely. And, a great way to jumpstart all this is try to find out why Bill Newell is not the attaché to Mexico that he was supposed to be.
Yes. That's an interesting story, because you're right. He was supposed to be in Mexico City right now as the ATF's new attaché.
Exactly. Right. It was either right before or right after the whistleblowers came out. I believe it was before. He was named as the next attaché to Mexico, and it was a promotion, and he was thought to be a real big mover and shaker within ATF with a lot of upcoming political clout. And now he can't go to Mexico, and would you like to tell the people why that is?
Well, What we've heard is that there are some politicians in Mexico who would like to arrest Mr. Newell and charge him and any other agents that might be connected to Fast and Furious if they set foot in Mexico.
Which kind of makes it a sticky diplomatic situation.
Yes, that is one way of putting it. Yeah, and look, I mean, remember when President Obama was supposed to reset our relations with foreign countries, and that bad cowboy Bush who just, damaged our reputation all around the world, he was going to be gone, Obama was going to come in, and all the world was going to join hands and sing songs in praise of the United States?
I'm fairly sure that only applied to countries with nuclear weapons pointed at us.
Well, I would say the criminal organizations that comprise the various Mexican drug cartels, thankfully, we don't think they have nuclear weapons, but the damage that they can do, and the damage that they are doing in Mexican society, the number of cartels that are operating in large numbers of U.S. cities indicates that they're already doing damage here. So, it may not be a nuclear weapon, but I think Obama has damaged our relationship with Mexico at a time in which they've got a lot of problems south of the border, and the problems are coming here.
Absolutely, and you alluded earlier that, or to the fact that we're sending CIA contractors and other what we used to call mercenaries when Bush was president down into Mexico to provide logistics and training and support. And we have a pretty bad history in this country of starting out like that and then getting dragged into a war.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if this gets to be Obama's second war coming up soon.
Well, right now I think it falls under the kinetic law enforcement action, or I guess if we're talking about Fast and Furious, maybe the kinetic law non-enforcement action.
Very much so.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, listen, glad you could be with us on the program, sir. Keep up the great job in reporting on Fast and Furious, and look forward to talking to you again very soon.